My name is Clarence. I'm 57 years old, and 3 weeks ago I stood in a lawyer's office learning that my wife of 35 years had left me $58 million. I was standing in that fancy downtown Portland office, holding a piece of paper I could barely read through my shock. Helen had just passed away 2 weeks before, and I was still trying to breathe through the grief. She had never mentioned money, not once in all our years together. I thought we were just regular folks with a modest savings account and maybe some life insurance. But my son Derek was waiting outside that office, and I had this sinking feeling in my gut that nothing would ever be the same. Before I tell you what happened when I walked out of that office, I want to ask you something. Have you ever discovered a truth about someone you loved that changed everything you thought you knew? Leave a comment about your experience. And please hit that like button and subscribe, because what unfolded next tested every belief I had about family loyalty and what we really owe our children. It was the fall of 1990 when I first met Helen. I was 22 years old, fresh out of Portland Community College with a degree in electrical technology. I was making $12 an hour as an electrician for a small company fixing wiring in old houses and installing ceiling fans for folks who could not climb ladders anymore. I met Helen at Fred Meyer, the big supermarket where she worked part-time as a cashier. She was 23, finishing her senior year studying elementary education at Portland State University. I remember that day clearly. I was buying light bulbs and electrical wire to fix my landlord's kitchen light. He was 80 years old, and his hands shook too much to handle tools safely anymore. Helen scanned my items and smiled at me. "You must be fixing something important," she said. I felt my face get hot. "Just my landlord's kitchen light," I told her. "He cannot climb ladders anymore." She wrote her phone number on my receipt. I called her that same night. Our first date was at a little pizza place on Hawthorne Boulevard. Helen wore an old wool sweater and jeans. No makeup, no jewelry except a worn watch that had belonged to her father. She talked about her dream of teaching children in rural communities, places where good teachers were hard to find. She insisted on splitting the bill, even though I wanted to pay. That was Helen, always fair, always thinking of others before herself. We got married in June of 1991. The wedding was small, just 35 people at the local Baptist church. Helen told me her parents lived far away and could not make the trip. I didn't question it. I was just happy to marry this woman who saw something good in a simple electrician like me. Her wedding dress came from a thrift shop and cost $75. The reception was at a family-style American restaurant, fried chicken and mashed potatoes for everyone. We spent our honeymoon at Cannon Beach in Oregon, renting a little cabin for $50 a night. We walked on the beach, collected shells, and talked about our future. Those early years were tight financially, but full of love. We rented a one-bedroom apartment on Southeast Portland for $450 a month. Helen taught at a public elementary school, making $28,000 a year. I was up to $18 an hour by then. On weekends, we would cook together, rent movies from Blockbuster, and dream about buying our own house someday. Helen clipped coupons from the Sunday paper and knew every sale at every grocery store. In 1995, we finally bought a small house in Gresham with a loan of $120,000, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a tiny backyard. It was everything we needed. Helen drove a 1988 Honda Civic that ran fine but looked rough. I had a 1992 Ford Ranger for hauling my tools. We never went to fancy restaurants. Our vacations were camping trips or road trips to see the Oregon coast. There was never any hint that Helen had money, never a designer purse, never an expensive piece of jewelry, never anything that suggested she came from wealth. In August of 1993, Helen gave birth to our son Derek at Portland Providence Hospital. There were some complications during delivery, and Helen had to stay in the hospital 3 extra days. The bill came to $8,000. Insurance covered most of it, but we still owed $1,500. We paid it off in 6 months, but I remember how stressed Helen looked counting pennies from our savings jar every night. I took extra jobs on weekends fixing electrical problems for neighbors who paid cash. Helen went back to teaching after a year off with Derek, even though I could tell she wanted more time with our baby. Derek was a fussy baby. He cried through the night, and Helen would walk the floors with him singing old lullabies her grandmother taught her. I would come home exhausted from crawling through attics and under houses, but I still played with Derek, tossing him in the air until he giggled. His toys came mostly from Goodwill. His birthday parties were always at home with cake Helen baked from scratch. She was good with her hands, sewing his clothes from old fabric when money was really tight. Derek grew up in a warm home, even if we could not give him much materially. I taught him to play baseball at the park near our house. Helen read to him every night before bed. The three of us always ate dinner together, talking about our days. It was a simple life, but it was good. Or so I thought. Around 2019, things started to feel different. Helen began taking trips on weekends. She said she was attending educational workshops or teacher training seminars. I trusted her completely and never asked many questions. Once she came home wearing an expensive-looking wool coat I'd never seen before. She told me a colleague had given it to her. I thought it was strange, but I did not want to seem suspicious. Helen started having private phone conversations too. She would walk out to the porch to talk, saying it was the principal or a parent of one of her students. One evening I walked past her study and saw her looking at real estate documents on her laptop. She quickly closed the screen when she noticed me. I asked what she was looking at. She said it was a project for expanding the school. I believed her. Why would not I? Helen had never lied to me in 30 years. But looking back now, sitting in that lawyer's office 3 weeks ago, I understood. Helen had secrets, big ones, and I was about to learn just how big they were. It was a Friday afternoon, March 2nd of this year. I was working at a construction site in Beaverton, running new electrical lines through a building that was being renovated. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Clarence, this is Officer Davis from Oregon State Police. My heart started pounding. I knew immediately something was wrong. Officer Davis told me there had been an accident on Highway 26 near Seaside. Helen's car had hit the median barrier trying to avoid a deer. She died instantly from head trauma. I could not breathe. I dropped my tools and collapsed onto the concrete floor. My coworker Tom had to drive me to the hospital to identify her body. The morgue was cold and smelled like chemicals. Helen lay on a steel table covered with a white sheet up to her shoulders. Her face looked peaceful, like she was sleeping. There was just a small bruise on her forehead. I held her hand, but it was already cold. I could not believe my wife of 35 years was gone. Just that morning, she had kissed me goodbye before leaving for work. "I'll be back late tonight," she had said. "Don't wait up." Those were the last words I ever heard from her. Derek arrived at our house that evening when he heard the news. He was 32 years old by then, working for a marketing company in Seattle. His wife Lauren came with him. She was 31 and also worked in marketing. Derek looked sad, but he didn't cry much. Lauren hugged me, but it felt forced, like she was going through the motions. Then Derek asked me something that made my stomach turn. Dad did. Mom have a will? I was confused. I had not even thought about legal matters yet. "I don't know, son," I told him. Derek kept pushing. "We need to check. There might be insurance or something." I did not like his tone, but I told myself he was just trying to be practical, trying to help the family. The funeral was held at the same Baptist church where Helen and I got married. About 50 people came. Her teaching colleagues, neighbors, and old friends. I gave the eulogy, my voice breaking every few words. I talked about Helen as a devoted wife and passionate teacher who changed children's lives every day. Derek sat in the front row with a blank expression. Lauren kept checking her phone, which I thought was disrespectful. After the service, Derek asked the funeral director about Helen's will. The director said another lawyer would be in touch within a few days. Derek seemed unusually interested. I was starting to feel uncomfortable with his behavior, but grief was clouding my judgment. A week after the funeral, my phone rang again. "Mr. Clarence, this is Gregory Patterson from Patterson & Associates law firm." His voice was formal but kind. "I represent your late wife's estate. We need to discuss her will." I was shocked. I did not know Helen had a lawyer. "Mrs. Helen retained our services 8 years ago," Mr. Patterson explained. "Please come to our office tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I agreed, my mind spinning with questions. That night I could not sleep. What had Helen been hiding? I thought maybe she had a small life insurance policy I did not know about. I called Derek and told him about the appointment. "I'll come with you, Dad," he said, sounding excited. I thought it would be good to have my son there for support. The law office was on the 15th floor of the U.S. Bancorp Tower in downtown Portland. The interior was all dark wood and expensive paintings. Mr. Patterson was about 60 years old with silver hair and an expensive suit. Derek sat next to me while Lauren stayed home. Mr. Patterson opened his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of documents. "Mr. Clarence, I have significant news regarding your wife's estate." I gripped the arms of my chair. Derek leaned forward, his eyes bright with anticipation. "Mrs. Helen's estate is valued at $58 million. I thought I had heard wrong." "Excuse me," I said. Mr. Patterson repeated himself slowly and clearly. Derek jumped to his feet. 58 million. Where did that come from? Mr. Patterson remained calm and explained everything. Helen had inherited the money from her wealthy family in Connecticut. Her father, Richard Whitmore, owned a medical device manufacturing company. Her mother, Eleanor, came from old money. Helen was their only child. When her parents died in 2015, she inherited everything. She invested it wisely through trust funds, and the assets grew over 8 years. I sat there unable to speak. 35 years of living modestly, clipping coupons, worrying about hospital bills, and Helen had been worth $58 million the whole time. I felt betrayed but also sad. Why had she kept this from me? Mr. Patterson continued reading the will. Helen left the entire estate to me, $58 million. Derek would receive only $200,000 from a separate trust, but only if he could prove financial responsibility for 6 months. Derek exploded. "This is ridiculous. I'm her son." Mr. Patterson stayed calm. "This was your mother's explicit wish." Derek turned to me, his face red with anger. "Dad, you need to fix this." I could not respond. I just stared at the document in front of me, seeing Helen's familiar signature at the bottom. I knew she must have had good reasons, but I could not understand what they were yet. Derek stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind him. I stayed asking Mr. Patterson to explain more. After Derek left, Mr. Patterson stood and walked to a cabinet. "Mrs. Helen left this letter for you. She instructed me to give it to you privately." He handed me a white envelope with my name written in Helen's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. "I'll give you privacy," Mr. Patterson said, stepping out of the room. "Take your time." I unfolded the letter and began to read. "My dearest Clarence, if you are reading this, I am gone, and I am so sorry I cannot explain this to your face. There is so much I kept from you, and I hope you can forgive me. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut. My father, Richard Whitmore, owned Whitmore Medical Devices. My mother, Eleanor, came from old money. I had everything a child could want materially, but nothing that mattered. My parents were cold, calculating people who cared more about social status than love. When I turned 21, they expected me to marry someone from their circle, a man named Bradford Wellington III. He was arrogant, cruel, and saw me as property. I refused. My father cut me off financially and told me I was no longer his daughter. I changed my last name, moved across the country, and started over with nothing. That is when I met you. You were the first person who loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. You worked your hands raw to give me a simple, beautiful life. You never asked for more than I could give. That is real love, Clarence. That is what I wanted. When my parents died in 2015, their lawyer found me. I inherited everything, but I could not tell you. I was afraid. Afraid the money would change us. Afraid you would feel inadequate or angry that I hid it. Afraid Derek would destroy himself with it. Derek has a problem, Clarence. I have known since he was 18. He stole $5,000 from my school's fundraiser account. I covered it up, paid it back quietly, and prayed he would change. But he did not. He gambles, he lies, and he will take everything if you let him. I left the money to you because I trust you. Use it wisely. Help Derek only if he proves he can change. Do not let him guilt you. You owe him love, not money. I'm sorry I kept this secret. I'm not sorry I chose you. You gave me the life I always dreamed of. Forever yours, Helen. Tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. I finally understood. Helen had protected me from her past, from the cold world of wealth she escaped. She chose simplicity, chose love, chose me. And she knew Derek had demons that money would only feed. Mr. Patterson returned to the room. He sat down across from me and slid another thick folder across the desk. Mrs. Helen hired a private investigator 2 years ago to monitor Derek. I opened the folder, my hands still shaking. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and detailed reports. Derek had been going to Alani Casino in Washington regularly for years. He owed approximately $80,000 to loan sharks. He had borrowed money from Lauren and her parents. Lauren was also in debt from online gambling. Derek had been fired from 2 previous companies for fraudulent expense reports. His current job was unstable. I felt sick. How had I not seen this? Mr. Patterson pointed to more documents. Your son asked you for money several times over the past 5 years, correct? I nodded. A few thousand here and there. Derek always said it was temporary hardship. Helen and I always gave it to him, wanting to help. We never imagined it was going to gambling debts. You could not have known, Mr. Patterson said gently. Derek hid it well. What should I do? I asked. Follow your wife's wishes, he said. Protect the money until Derek proves himself. I drove home that afternoon feeling like I was in a nightmare. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Derek's car already parked there. He and Lauren were waiting in the living room. Derek stood up the second I walked in. Dad, we need to talk. Lauren was holding papers. We've consulted a lawyer, she said, about what I asked already exhausted, about contesting Mom's will, Derek said. It's unfair and we have grounds. I set my keys down slowly. Your mother had her reasons. Derek's face twisted with anger. What reasons? That she loved you more than me, no son, I said quietly. She loved you very much. Then why did she leave me scraps? Derek shouted. 200,000 is nothing compared to 58 million. Because she knew you would waste it, I said. The words came out harsher than I intended. The room went silent. Derek stared at me. What are you talking about? Pulled out the investigator's folder that Mr. Patterson had given me. I know about the gambling, Derek. Your mother knew too. Derek's face went pale. Lauren grabbed the folder from my hands. Where did you get this? Your mother hired investigators, I told them. She knew everything about the casino, the debts, the lies. Derek stepped backward like I had hit him. So what he finally said, that's my life. You can't judge me, I'm not judging. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm protecting you from yourself like your mother wanted. Derek laughed bitterly. I don't need protection. I need what's rightfully mine. We argued for another 20 minutes. Lauren tried to defend Derek, saying everyone has debts, but $80,000 in gambling debts is not normal debt. Derek finally grabbed Lauren's arm. You'll regret this, Dad, he said at the door. Then they left the door slamming behind them. I sat alone in the dark living room for hours. I looked at our wedding photo on the wall, Helen smiling in her $75 thrift store dress. I wondered if I was doing the right thing. The week after that confrontation was hell. Derek called every single day. Sometimes he begged, Dad, I'm desperate. They're threatening me. If you don't help, I'll lose everything. Mom would have wanted you to help me. Sometimes he got angry and hung up on me. I stayed firm. I'll help when you get treatment for gambling, I told him every time. Lauren called too, crying. Your son is suffering and you just watch. She did not understand. The 200,000 was available, but Derek had to prove responsibility first. 6 months is too long, Lauren screamed. We need money now. Then things got scary. A man with a rough voice called my cell phone. Mr. Clarence, your son owes my client money. You should pay if you care about his safety. The threat was clear. I called the police, but they said they could not do anything unless there was actual violence. My neighbor Dorothy, a 70-year-old widow, stopped me one morning. Derek came by yesterday asking if I'd seen you, she said, looking worried. He looked very angry. I started to feel unsafe in my own home. Tom, my electrician friend, suggested I stay somewhere else for a while. I refused. This was my house. I was not going to be driven out by fear. On Thursday night, I had a long meeting with Mr. Patterson about protecting the estate from potential lawsuits. He assured me Helen's will was airtight. The meeting lasted until 9 o'clock. I drove home through cold March rain, tired and just wanting to sleep. I pulled into my driveway at 9:30. All the lights in the house were off, which seemed strange. I took out my key and tried to unlock the front door. The key would not turn. The lock had been changed. I knocked hard. Derek, are you in there? The lights inside suddenly came on. The door opened and Derek stood there with a cold expression. What do you want? He asked. This is my house, I said, confused. Why did you change the locks? Derek held up some papers. Actually, it's not your house. It's mine. What are you talking about? I grabbed the papers. Derek pointed at the property deed. Mom transferred the deed to me 5 years ago. This house has been in my name since 2020. I read the document under the porch light. He was right. The house was legally in Derek's name. Suddenly, I remembered. Back in 2020, Derek had complained about having trouble finding affordable housing in Seattle. Helen suggested we help him by putting his name on our house deed, just in case he ever needs it, she had said. I trusted Helen and agreed. I never imagined Derek would use this against me. I'm the legal owner, Derek said flatly. You need to leave. Son, you can't do this. Watch me, Derek replied. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll call the police for trespassing. Lauren appeared behind him holding 3 garbage bags. We've moved in. Your stuff is in these bags. She threw them onto the porch. I stood there in the rain, unable to believe what was happening. Derek, please, I said. Where am I supposed to go? Derek would not look at me. That's not my problem. Maybe you should use some of that $58 million to rent a hotel. The door slammed shut. I heard the lock click from inside. I stood in the rain, a 57-year-old man being kicked out by his own son. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, but no one came out to help. I felt humiliated and heartbroken. I picked up the garbage bags and threw them in my truck, then just sat in the driver's seat staring at the house where I had lived for 28 years. The house where Derek grew up, where Helen and I had built our life together. I called Tom at 10 o'clock at night. "Come over," he said immediately when I explained what happened. I drove to Tom's house in North Portland. When he opened the door and saw me soaked and defeated, he looked furious. "Jesus, what happened?" I told him everything. "That boy has lost his mind," Tom said, shaking his head. I spent that night on Tom's couch, unable to sleep. I kept thinking about Helen, about Derek, about how completely I had failed as a father. But somewhere in the pain and exhaustion, a determination began to grow. I remembered Helen's letter, "Use it wisely." I remembered Mr. Patterson mentioning an estate, a property Helen owned. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I sat up. I knew what I needed to do. Tom made coffee at 8. "What's your plan, buddy?" he asked. "I'm going to call Mr. Patterson," I said. I called the lawyer's office as soon as it opened. I explained what Derek had done. "That's illegal," Mr. Patterson said immediately. "We can fight to get your house back." "No," I said. "I'm done fighting with my son over property. You said Helen had an estate." "Yes." Mr. Patterson confirmed. The Willow Creek Estate, a Victorian mansion about 15 miles from Portland. "I want to move there today," I told him. Mr. Patterson arranged everything within 2 hours. He contacted the property manager, a woman named Rosa, to prepare the house. I thanked Tom for his kindness and promised to stay in touch. "You call me if you need anything?" Tom said, hugging me. "And don't let Derek break you." I loaded my 3 garbage bags into my truck and started driving. As I left Portland, heading toward Willow Creek, the rain began to stop and thin rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. It felt like I was driving toward a new chapter of my life, one Helen had somehow prepared for me. I arrived at the estate gate around 11 o'clock. It was a massive iron gate, at least 10 feet tall, with intricate floral designs worked into the metal. A brass plaque read, "Whitmore Estate." I felt a jolt seeing that name, Helen's family name that she had abandoned so long ago. I pressed the intercom button. "Mr. Clarence, welcome," a woman's voice said in a warm accent. "The gate is opening." The driveway was 200 yards long, lined with ancient oak trees whose branches created a natural canopy overhead. The pavement was smooth granite still wet from the morning rain. I drove slowly, taking in the manicured flower beds full of blooming tulips and roses on both sides. When I rounded the final curve, the mansion came into view, and I had to catch my breath. It was a 3-story Victorian painted cream white with navy blue accents. The roof was red tile with brick chimneys rising from multiple points. Large wooden windows with stained glass details caught the late morning sun. A wide front porch wrapped around the entire first floor, supported by Corinthian columns. I estimated the house was at least 8,000 square feet. Behind it, I could see fruit trees and what looked like a small pond. I could not believe Helen had owned this place. A woman in a neat gray uniform was waiting on the front steps. She was around 55, with warm brown eyes and dark hair pulled into a bun. "Mr. Clarence," she said, coming down to greet me. "I'm Rosa. Mrs. Helen spoke of you often. I'm so sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I managed to say. "How long did you work for Helen?" 8 years, Rosa replied. "Since she bought this property in 2017. She never told me about this place," I admitted. Rosa smiled sadly. "She had her reasons. She loved you very much. I could tell from how she talked about you." Rosa led me inside. The entrance hall took my breath away. A curved staircase made of walnut wood spiraled up to the second floor. A crystal chandelier from Waterford hung from a ceiling at least 20 feet high. The floors were polished maple with expensive Persian rugs. To the left was a living room with a marble fireplace and velvet furniture in deep green. Oil paintings of European landscapes hung on the walls. To the right was a formal dining room with a table that could seat 12 people. Fine china and crystal glasses were displayed in built-in cabinets. I walked through, slowly touching the furniture, trying to process that Helen had owned all this. Everything was perfectly maintained. The kitchen was modern with granite countertops and top-of-the-line Viking and Sub-Zero appliances. There was a separate laundry room, a small office with bookshelves, and several other rooms I could not even identify the purpose of. I saw a few educational books in the office books Helen must have read here during her secret visits. Rosa took me upstairs to the master bedroom. It was 500 square feet with a king-size bed and velvet headboard. Large windows overlooked the garden and pond. The bathroom had both a walk-in shower and a separate soaking tub. The closet was as big as a small room. Inside, I found some of Helen's clothes still hanging. I reached out and touched a familiar cardigan she used to wear on cool evenings. Her perfume still lingered on the fabric. Tears started falling. Next to the master bedroom was a private library, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with books on education, novels, and history. A mahogany writing desk sat in the center with a leather chair. Windows looked out over a rose garden. I stepped inside and immediately felt Helen's presence. Mrs. Helen spent many hours here, Rosa said from the doorway. She said this was her sanctuary. Did she come here often? I asked. Every few weeks, Rosa answered. She would spend weekends here reading and planning what I asked. I think she was planning your future, Mr. Clarence, Rosa said softly, then left me alone. I sat at the writing desk and opened a drawer. Inside were several notebooks. One had private journal written on the cover. I opened it carefully. Helen's handwriting filled the pages. I began reading entries from 2017 through 2024. March 15, 2017. I bought this house today. Clarence doesn't know. I feel guilty, but I need a place where I can process everything. A place that's mine. July 4, 2018. I sat in the garden today and thought about telling Clarence the truth. But how do I explain 30 years of lies? He'll feel betrayed. Or worse, he'll feel inadequate. November 12, 2019. Derek asked to borrow money again. $10,000 this time. I said no. He hung up on me. Clarence thinks Derek is doing fine, but I know better. I hired the investigator today, February 8, 2021. The investigator's report confirms my fears. Derek is gambling heavily. He owes nearly $60,000. I can't tell Clarence. It would break his heart. September 22, 2023. I've updated my will. Everything goes to Clarence. Derek will get his chance, but only if he changes. I hope Clarence understands. I hope he forgives me. January 10, 2024. I don't feel well. I should see a doctor, but I'm afraid. If something happens to me, I pray Clarence finds this place and understands why I did everything. That was just 2 months before the accident that killed her. I closed the journal and put my head in my hands, crying openly. Helen had carried so much weight alone. She protected me from harsh truths while preparing this sanctuary for me. I loved her more in that moment than I ever had before. I sat in that library until the sun began to set. Looking out the window at the peaceful garden, I felt calm for the first time in weeks. Helen had given me this gift, this place of beauty and quiet. I understood now that she had planned for every possibility, even this one, even Derek turning against me. She knew I would need somewhere to go, somewhere to heal. I made a decision sitting in that chair. I would honor Helen's wishes. I would protect what she left me, and I would not let Derek destroy himself or me. I woke the next morning in the master bedroom, sunlight streaming through the windows. It was the first deep, peaceful sleep I had gotten since Helen died. I could almost feel her presence in the room, like she was still watching over me. I got dressed and went downstairs where Rosa had prepared breakfast. Eggs, toast, and coffee in the small breakfast nook off the kitchen. She loved sitting here in the mornings, Rosa said, pouring my coffee, reading the newspaper. At 9 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Mr. Patterson. Clarence, I need to warn you. Derek called my office this morning demanding to know where you are. Did you tell him I asked? No, Mr. Patterson said, but he's determined. He hired a private investigator. He might find the estate soon. Let him come, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. I'm done hiding. Are you sure? Mr. Patterson asked. I can arrange security. No, I replied. I need to face him one last time. Around noon, I was sitting in the library reading more of Helen's journals when Rosa rushed upstairs. Mr. Clarence, there's a car at the gate. It's forcing its way through. I went to the window and looked out. Derek's car was ramming against the iron gate repeatedly. The gate bent but held. Derek got out along with Lauren and 2 large men I did not recognize. Bodyguards he must have hired to intimidate me. I went downstairs calmly and opened the front door. Derek stood in the middle of the circular driveway, staring up at the mansion with his mouth open. Lauren looked equally shocked. This is where she lived, Lauren whispered. Derek turned to the 2 bodyguards. Wait here, he ordered. Then he walked toward me. So this is where you've been hiding, he said. I'm not hiding, I replied, standing on the top step. I'm living in the home my wife left me. Derek climbed the steps. This should be mine. I'm her son. This is mine according to law, I said firmly. You have no claim here. Derek's face twisted with rage. You stole everything from me. I stole nothing, I said, keeping my voice steady. Your mother made her choice. Lauren rushed forward. She was sick. She didn't know what she was doing. I felt anger rise in my chest. Don't you dare insult Helen. She was perfectly sound when she made that will. Then why did she cut me out? Derek shouted. What did I do wrong? You know exactly what you did, I said. The gambling, the lying, the stealing. Derek went quiet. I continued. Your mother knew about the $5,000 you stole when you were 19. She knew about the debts. She knew everything. Derek's face went white. She knew, he whispered. She hired investigators, Derek, I told him. She documented everything. Lauren spun toward Derek. You told me your mother didn't know. Derek stood there frozen, unable to speak. I pulled out the thick investigator's file from inside the house. This is everything. Your gambling debts, the companies you've defrauded, the loans you never paid back. Derek started shaking. Where did you get that? Your mother, I said. She's been tracking you for years, hoping you'd change. Derek collapsed to his knees on the steps. Dad, please. I need money. They're going to hurt me. Who? I asked. The people I owe, Derek said, his voice breaking. They've threatened Lauren. They know where we live. Then you need to go to the police, I said. Not demand money from me. Derek looked up at me with desperate eyes. The police can't help. These people are dangerous, and giving you $58 million would just delay the problem, I replied. You'd gamble it away and be right back here. I walked down and stood next to my son. Your mother left you $200,000, Derek. That's more than enough to start over. With conditions, Derek shouted. I have to prove myself for 6 months. I'll be dead by then. Then prove yourself faster, I said. Get into a treatment program. I'll pay for it. Get a steady job. I'll help you. But I won't just hand you money. Derek stood up, wiping tears from his face. You're just like her, always judging me. I felt my own anger explode. We're not judging you. We love you. But love doesn't mean enabling your destruction. Derek started to cry harder. I can't change, Dad. I've tried. You can change, I said, putting my hand on his shoulder. But you have to want it. Your mother believed you could. That's why she left you that money with conditions. Derek pulled away from me. Why did she give up on me? She didn't give up, I said gently. She gave you a chance, but you have to take it. Derek stood there for a long time, just breathing. Lauren stayed back by the car. Finally, Derek spoke quietly. I don't know if I can do it. You can, I told him, but it's your choice. Derek looked up at the mansion one more time. She really owned all this, he asked. She did, I said, and she lived simply because she valued people over things. She wanted you to learn that. Derek turned and walked slowly back toward his car. Lauren ran after him. Derek, what are we doing? Derek stopped and turned back to me. I need to think, he said. When you're ready to get help, I replied, call me, I'll be here. Derek nodded once, then got into his car with Lauren. The 2 bodyguards looked confused but followed. The car backed out through the bent gate and disappeared down the tree-lined driveway. I stood there watching until I could not see them anymore. Rosa came and stood beside me. You did the right thing, Mr. Clarence. I hope so, I said, feeling exhausted. I went back inside up to the library and sat in Helen's chair. I did not know if I would ever see Derek again. But I had kept my promise to Helen. I had stood firm. Now all I could do was wait and see if Derek would make the choice to save himself. The first 2 weeks after Derek left, I focused on settling into the estate. I met with Mr. Patterson to set up a financial plan for the $58 million. I decided to establish a $5 million scholarship fund for teachers, exactly what Helen would have wanted. The fund would be called the Helen Whitmore Memorial Scholarship Fund. I put $40 million into conservative trust funds to ensure the money would last. That left $13 million for living expenses and emergencies. I didn't need luxury, I just needed enough. Tom came to visit and could not believe the mansion. Buddy, you're living in a castle, he said, laughing. It's just a house, I replied. Helen wanted me to be comfortable. Any word from Derek? Tom asked. No, I said. I hope he's thinking. Tom shook his head. You're a better man than me. I would have cut him off completely. He's still my son, I told Tom. I started volunteering at the elementary school where Helen used to teach. I offered to do electrical repairs for free and set up a fund to buy books for students whose families could not afford them. Being there made me feel close to Helen. The teachers and students were kind to me, and it gave my days purpose beyond just managing money. 6 weeks after the confrontation, my phone rang with Derek's number. My heart jumped. I answered. Dad, can I come see you? Derek's voice sounded different, calmer, more serious. Of course, son, I said. I have something to tell you. Derek continued. I'm coming alone. Lauren and I separated. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, though I was not entirely surprised. It's for the best, Derek said quietly. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. Derek arrived at 2 o'clock the next day. I opened the door and barely recognized him. He had lost weight and was dressed in simple jeans and a plain shirt. The arrogance was gone from his face. I opened my arms and Derek hugged me tightly. I'm sorry, Dad, he whispered. I hugged him back, feeling tears in my eyes. We sat in the living room and Derek began to talk. I enrolled in a gambling treatment program at Portland Gambling Rehabilitation Center, he said. I go to group therapy 3 times a week. I found a job at a construction company. Tom actually helped me get it. I felt grateful to my old friend. I'm working hard, Derek continued, sending money to pay off my debts little by little. Lauren didn't want to deal with the changes, so we decided to separate. I'm proud of you, son, I said. Derek looked at me with red eyes. I have a long way to go, but I'm trying. That's all your mother wanted, I told him, for you to try. Derek reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded letter. Mr. Patterson gave this to me after I enrolled in treatment. It's from Mom. What did she say, I asked? Derek's voice shook as he spoke. That she loved me. That she believed I could change. That she was sorry for keeping secrets. But she also said she knew I had a problem, and that's why she structured the will the way she did. She wanted me to prove I could be responsible before getting the money. I nodded. Your mother was protecting you from yourself. I understand that now, Derek said quietly. 3 months passed. Derek completed his treatment program and received a certificate. He had been working steadily at the construction company for 4 months. He had paid back $30,000 of his debts. He rented a small 1-bedroom apartment and called me every week to talk. I could hear the change in him. He sounded calmer, more mature, more honest. I called Mr. Patterson. Derek has proven himself, I said. Release the $200,000. Are you sure, the lawyer asked. Yes, I said. He's earned it. The money was transferred into an account managed by a financial advisor to ensure Derek used it wisely. Derek used it to pay off the rest of his debts and put a down payment on a small house. He did not gamble. He did not waste it. He had truly changed. Derek started coming to the estate every Sunday for dinner. Rosa would cook roast chicken, Helen's favorite meal. Derek and I would sit at the dining table talking about our weeks, about memories of Helen, about the future. We laughed together for the first time in years. Our relationship was slowly healing. I sat in the library one evening looking at Helen's photograph on the desk. The sun was setting outside, casting golden light through the windows. I spoke to her picture out loud. You planned this all along, didn't you? You knew I'd need this place. You knew Derek would need to hit bottom before he could rise. I touched the frame gently. Thank you for loving us enough to be tough when we needed it. I thought about everything that had happened, the shock of inheriting $58 million, Derek's anger and betrayal, being kicked out of my own house, finding this beautiful estate Helen left for me, standing firm when Derek tried to take everything, watching my son finally choose to change his life. It had been the hardest few months of my life, but also the most important. I still don't know if Helen foresaw everything that happened or if she simply trusted that love would find a way. But I do know this. The greatest inheritance isn't money. It's the wisdom to use it right, the courage to stand firm when it matters, and the grace to forgive when it's time. Helen gave me all 3. And in the end, maybe that was her plan all along, to teach me and Derek what truly matters. Sometimes the hardest gift to give someone you love is the space to fall, knowing they might just find the strength to stand back up. If you've ever had to make a tough choice about helping someone you love, I'd like to hear your story. Drop a comment below about how you handled it, and if this story touched you in any way, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about life, family, and the unexpected paths we walk. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that tough love is still love. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that sometimes protecting the people we love means not giving them what they want, but giving them what they need. Take care of yourselves and the people you love. Remember that wisdom is worth more than money, and family is worth fighting for, even when the fight looks different than we expected.